Melusi Xulu is a legal analyst and he joins us now to talk through the testimony of Constable Zungu. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Perhaps your overall reflections on his testimony.
Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to the viewers at home. My assessment is that I think for the state's case, we certainly now have a view how they are trying to link all 5 of the accused together in this case. The only issue that one might have is that, this new witness was brought in now because we are told that he made a statement on the 31st of May 2023, if I'm not mistaken. So one wonders why he did not give the statement. But what is crucial as well is that there seems to be some division in how the case is approached. And then the 375 docket once again comes, attention is brought to the docket once again.
Just in terms of his testimony and whether it will assist the state indeed, you point out that he made a statement in May of 2023. Is that something that is unusual? Because he's also very particular in the detail that he mentions, as if this happened yesterday, whereas other witnesses that we've seen throughout the trial, no matter who it is, there were moments where they could not remember, but not this particular witness.
Yes, it's very strange. It shows that, he had time to think about that statement later on. But what I've assessed on this case so far, when it comes to the evidence of the state, is that whenever they're going through with their, testimony, it looks like we are investigating the case with them at the same time. There are certain issues where you feel as if they are on a fact-finding mission themselves whilst it's a trial. And for me, that is concerning. For example, you will find a pathologist who will come and say Senzo Meyiwa died within minutes or within seconds. And you'll find state witnesses coming and say he died hours later, and in fact he died towards the way to the hospital. So now in comes a new witness with a whole lot of information, but he's bringing us to the attention of the senior officials who definitely have to come and testify because there's some contradiction amongst the seniors.
And that's just it. At some particular point, the state wanted to admit his evidence as hearsay evidence, something that the defense took exception to, and then later on withdrawing it, where the defense pointed out that the person you're speaking of is still alive and they can still be called to the court. We're still waiting for the defense to actually go through the cross-examination with this one particular witness and poke holes as the matter has been stood down for today. But on the matter of calling the General Sibia, for instance, at the time, what are the chances?
Well, if the state decides not to call General Sibia, it's going to happen like it happened with Kelly, where the defense said if Kelly is not going to be called, they're going to ask that the court, makes an order that she comes to testify on their behalf. So I think if they've read the statement of Sibia and they feel he should be called, they'll make that application and he'll come and testify if it's going to assist the defense in any ways, because the state seems reluctant to call him. They felt it's not important. So if the defense feels it's important, they will call him, and if it assists their case, it will be relevant.
At one point, he was asked about a type of firearm, as we played a few moments ago, mentioning that it was a 9mm, asked if it was his personal gun or work-related. He says the gun was issued at work, and he says when the men returned, he could smell it because he could see that there was something suspicious that was happening. I mean, some of the detail that we are hearing here is... I don't know if sensational is the word or the right word to use, so please guide me, especially in the line of work that you do. And so when you take a look at this testimony, for instance, and also from the line of work that you do you find that there are certain witnesses who are coached?
Let's go to Mr. Pchelezi, the friend of accused number 2. This is Ndanzi, correct? He first said sensationally that he came to visit or see Mr. Ndanzi, accused number 2, whilst he was arrested. And he said, I'm arrested because I killed Senzo whilst I was with accused number 4. Then when he was examined, he said, hey, actually, I was told, he told me that the police are saying that I killed Senzo Meyiwa, not that he told me that he killed Senzo Meyiwa. And later on, he said, he wanted to say exactly what the police are saying. So what does that tell you? There is some coaching that happens. Now, it's even worse if it's the police involved, but the current witness, Senzo Zungu, his testimony will be tested when it's cross-examined. But I feel that this is one of the most important witnesses that the defense will have to cross-examine. If it has to take some time, but they have to make sure that they really cross-examine, because it's the first witness who has kind of brought the 5 accused together through his evidence.
Do you perceive that his testimony has assisted the court in terms of things that he said, and what in particular stood out for you?
Well, there is a certain instance where he says, I don't know whether it was Lishabane who called him and asked him about the case, but he said on his testimony that he's not sure if it was those accused, meaning he's not sure. So the other thing that stood out for me, it stated that there was a dreadlock accused. I think it's accused number 1. And then he says on the day, accused number 3 did have dreadlocks, but his dreadlocks were tied. They were not loose. So he's not even sure himself about certain situations. But I think how he's trying to link accused number 1 about him having told him about this case being serious, it's also not clear whether accused number 1 said to him, we actually killed Senzo Meyiwa and this case is serious. But it does say the family members of accused number 1 are trying to kill him. So there's a lot of sensational issues. But what is interesting about evidence in chief is that it still has to be cross-examined. That is why I'm saying we'll then have to balance how he stands cross-examination based on what he said today.
Could he have, or could he at a particular point during cross-examination see him being painted as an accessory? If you thought there was something suspicious, why didn't you do anything about it?
He might be pointed as someone who might not really behave as a police officer, because if they are saying there were guns, and what do you do about it? So his image will not look as a proper policeman, but it will probably explain why. But I think the defense is really ready to cross-examine him, and then his evidence will be tested. And what is interesting, I'm just repeating this, is that he has brought certain names of police officials in positions. And I think that is interesting because it's going to show us whether was this case bang built, was this case, are they trying to point out the people who did not do it as if they did it? So it's crucial that once it's cross-examined, we'll see a balance, but it's also crucial that the senior officials, namely Lishabane, Kininda, and the rest, they come to testify.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Melusi Xulu is a legal analyst.